Hi, and thank you for joining me for this Judgment Detox. Also, I just wanted to say welcome to all the new members we've got. I haven't taken the time to welcome each one of you, but I have sent each one a personal message. So you can always get back to me via Messenger, or you can, of course, write to me at my email address, which is contact@katrinahorn.com. So today, Judgment Detox. And this is such a sensitive issue. Thank you, Adriana, for pointing out that it was the same title as this book by Gabby Bernstein, which is an excellent book. It has got solutions, tapping solutions. It has got meditations. It's got lots of journaling questions that you can dive into. So I can only recommend it. But what I'm going to talk about is not quite what's in this book, right? I'm going to give you a few thoughts of mine on judgment. So why do we judge? Beats me. I mean, of course, I know why we judge, because we're brought up to judge. We are living in a society where judgment is everywhere. We judge and we are judged. And it's a vicious cycle. And to stop it, it must start with us. It must start with us not judging others. Because if you're in a habit of judging others, and if we are all being just a tad honest with ourselves, we know that we do go into judgment. I, for one, do, right? But I'm aware of it. And with awareness, you can actually start changing things, right? As long as you're not aware that you're actually judging, well, you're not going to change it, are you? So let's just start with the awareness, and let's not go to the place where we start judging ourselves for judging. Right. So if you're here live, I'd love to know it. So you can just say hi, Katrina, and I'll say hi back. So this circle of judgment, where we feel justified in judging people, we turn that judgment towards ourselves too. That is what I talked about in the email I sent out, I think, because this summer, we didn't really have the summer we were planning to have, me and my husband, which is not a problem because we were able to work around it. So this summer we were meant to go to Denmark, where I come from, and sail around at my sister's. But we have these aging parents, and one of them fell ill here in France, so we couldn't go. So we changed all that around, and then my dad was ill again, and I had to go to Denmark to take care of him. I didn't have to, right? But I chose to. So at the end of the summer, we hadn't even been on holiday yet. So we said, okay, let's just go, because we can't just give. We need to receive too. So we gifted ourselves a week away, where we went sailing in our tiny little sailing boat, and we had a very, very joyful time. It was lovely. And so I'm not regretting it, but just to tell you that we could have sort of kept on giving, and preventing ourselves from going on holiday. Or we could have gone on holiday with a guilty conscience because we'd be judging ourselves. So what I'm going to talk about is how all this is interconnected with the judgment, the justification, the jealousy, intentions, and fault finding, where we go into the shaming, the blaming, and the guilt, right? So none of the words I've mentioned are very joyful, right? So in order to be able to choose happiness, we have to navigate around all these hurdles, don't we? So we have to not deny our judgment, but to become aware of who it is we're judging. What are the feelings that make us feel when we judge? And what triggered the judgment? So we start with awareness, because as long as you're not aware, well, there's nothing you can do about it, is there? So can I just ask you to think about who or what is it that you judge? Like I used to judge people who I thought were lazy. I used to judge people who were not working because I was a bit of a workaholic, right? Um, so I worked a lot, and I thought, oh, that is so shocking. These people who are on social benefit, who make lots of children and then don't go out to work, which was, of course, totally stupid of me, right? But I'm not judging myself for having thought that, because when I became aware of this judgment I had, well, I could do something about it. So I asked, okay, I'm judging these people for not working. Why? Why am I judging them? Because it is obviously connected to some of my issues. And my issue at the time was that I had to prove not only to the world, but to myself that I wasn't lazy, right? So I had to work more than everybody else. I had to overperform just to prove to myself that I wasn't lazy. Okay, so having all these lazy people around, well, that would sort of tell me, well, these people, they're living, right? And they're not really bothered by being labeled lazy. They're not bothered by all that. So that was, of course, infuriating to me. So my other question to you was, how does judging make you feel? And going back to my example of judging people who weren't overworking the way I was, who weren't workaholics the way I was, the feelings I had was obviously, first of all, being justified. Of course I was right to judge these people, right? But then the feelings aren't really those of joy and happiness, love and compassion, are they? They are of judgment, because you compare yourself to these people you judge. You compare yourself, and what you would really like to do when you judge is to find yourself superior to these people. So it's about comparing yourself, knowing that you're never going to have any happiness out of comparing yourself, because there's always going to be somebody who works more than you. There's always going to be somebody who works less than you. There's always going to be somebody smarter than you, not as smart as you. There's always going to be somebody as beautiful as you, more beautiful than you, less beautiful than you. So all this comparison is of no use. Yet when we judge, we feel an instant surge of feeling better, don't we? Because if we're being honest, if we're judging them, it's because they're doing something wrong, which means that we are doing something right. So that really can get us on this high horse of feeling justified, of feeling superior, because the other people aren't doing as well as we are. The only hitch with this is that this feeling doesn't last, because deep down we know that this all stems from this feeling of having to prove ourselves, of not being good enough. I'm just letting that sink in, right? Because if we are feeling good enough, if we are certain that what we are is just amazing, well, then we don't need to know what other people are. We don't need to judge them for what they are, because we know that we are perfectly good. We are perfectly fine. We're perfectly acceptable. So when we judge, we instinctively know that we are judging others to make us feel better at their expense. So it's not us feeling better from the inside. It's us needing those other people to make us feel better. And I'm including myself, because I still do judge, right? So when I judge, I immediately think, oh, that's a judgment, Katrina. What are you judging here? And it might not be what it looks like at first. So you might have to dig a bit deeper when you ask yourself, what am I judging? Who am I judging, right? And then ask yourself, what are the emotions that are triggered by that? And I think that if you have a first elation, you might find that your feelings afterwards are really not that comfortable. They're more of sadness, aren't they? They can even become those of jealousy. And that is not a very nice place to be in. So you can then look at the trigger. To me, the trigger was this perceived laziness in other people, which triggered one of my deep fears that I wasn't good enough because I was lazy. So I had to prove all the time that I wasn't lazy, right? So can you see how with these 3 questions, you can start becoming aware of what's going on, right? So what is going on? What is going on is that we judge, or you judge, to make yourself feel better in the short run, but all the while you are undermining your self-confidence, your self-esteem, because this judgment that you use for others, you're going to not only turn it towards yourself, but you're also inviting other people to judge you in return. And nobody likes being judged, do they? Nobody. So actually what's the word? We are entertaining, we are feeding this judgment cycle when we start the judgment. So let's get back to ourselves. When we judge ourselves, right? We judge ourselves to be inferior, which is not something that we can really build on, is it? Because we are not inferior. So what happens when we judge ourselves and we say, that was so stupid, I am so stupid, or no, I'll go into blame later. So we do something and we find ourselves stupid or lacking in intelligence or anything like that. It's an opportunity to feel bad about ourselves, because we start thinking, not that, oh, that was a stupid thing to do. We start thinking, I'm stupid, right? So we find that not only do we do stupid things, we actually are stupid. And you can put in sad, angry, unloving, unkind, lazy. You can put in anything you want in that sentence. I am plus an adjective, right? So we start identifying with this, finding ourselves at fault. Because what is it with this? We need to attach fault to something, don't we? We need to find the guilty person. We need to find out who we can blame for this. So if you do something that is rather stupid, then you can start telling yourself, I am so stupid. And that becomes, in one instant, a situation that is permanent. It becomes personal. It's about you, and it becomes pervasive, because you are not only stupid in one situation, you are always stupid. And these 3 P's, the letter P, which is permanent, personal, and pervasive, are the 3 P's from Martin Seligman, who is one of the people who started the positive psychology movement. And these 3 P's are really dangerous, because they take us from a situation that was temporary, that was just in the moment, to a situation that is permanent. Can you see the difference? So the permanence of it, the personal attachment to it, and the pervasiveness, it's everywhere, I'm stupid in all situations, is something that can get us down, isn't it? And how can you feel confident about yourself? How can you love yourself if you are attaching these labels to yourself, right? So these labels reinforce the judgment, because when you feel stupid, you are on the lookout for people who are more stupid than yourself. So really, if you take this to the end of my argument, is that you will judge people for what you have judged yourself for. So if you've judged yourself to be stupid, well, you'll be on the lookout for stupid people. And when you're on the lookout, just think you do fine, don't you? because you're putting all your focus on something, so you are sure to find it. I can give another example. I know that people who find themselves to be overweight, they judge other people from being overweight, right? So let me just tell you how this could function. You go down the street, you go down the high street, any street in a city where there are people, you see somebody with a fat bum. And you think, wow, does she know how she looks in those jeans with that fat bum? Right? I mean, I'm being a bit crude about this, but if we're being perfectly honest with ourselves, we have all done this, haven't we? Is she aware of how she looks? Right? So that really says more about the you than about the woman if you go into that judgment, because it tells us that you are really a bit hung up about your own big bum. And you need to find people who have got an even bigger bum than you, or who look even more dreadful than you think you yourself look, right? It's again this comparison. So you're on the lookout for people who will not measure up to you. You can judge them thinking that that will make you feel better. And let's just take an opposite example. You can even judge people who are totally slim and beautiful. If you feel that you're overweight and you see this gorgeous person with a dream body, well, you can judge her for being something that you might just invent. You can say, she might have the most beautiful body, but I'm sure she's so stupid. She must be unintelligent or something like that. We'll just invent something, right, to put the other person down so that we can feel better. So you think, oh no, Katrina, I would never do that. But I think in some measure, we all do it. And the sad thing about this is not just that we judge the other people, it is that the way we treat other people is how we treat ourselves. I don't think you can be loving and caring with yourself if you are not so with other people, right? So if you judge other people, you also judge yourself. And we feel the need to judge because we want a person to blame. So what is the opposite, or what comes with blame, is that we want to attribute responsibility. If somebody else is responsible, then we are not responsible. So that takes us off the hook. Wow, we can start relaxing about it, we think. Right? So if we can find somebody to blame, well, then we've pushed away the responsibility, and we think that that will make us feel better. So I know that I often go into this blaming as a self-defense mechanism, right? Because I don't want to take responsibility, perhaps. But just think about it. If you think that, okay, I'm a sad person, I might be suffering from depression, and this is because I grew up with my mum who was depressed, right? I'm not depressed, but I did grow up with a mother who suffered from depression, right? So had I been depressed, I could say, oh, it's my mum's fault. She's responsible. I'm not. Because if you can find somebody to whom you can attach blame, it lets you off the hook, doesn't it? But my idea is that we don't need to find a faulty person, because fault to me equals intention. So you can only be found faulty, or you can only be found guilty if your intent was the outcome, right? So if my mum's intent was to make me depressed, then she could have been faulty. She could have been at fault, right? So think about it. If you want to go into blame, you are taking your own responsibility away from that, from the situation, right? And you're putting that responsibility on somebody else who might not be to blame because their intention was never to do whatever it is you think they did to you, right? So let me give you another example. Maybe you're into blaming your husband the way I sometimes do it. Just today, I had to admit to myself, I went straight into blame because I was looking for my car keys. My husband moved the car this morning because we've got builders round. So he moved very kindly the car that I had parked in the way of the builders. So he moved the car. What did he do with the key? I thought, oh, he's gone and done it again. I can't find my car key. So I was blaming him straight away, right? Instead of actually seeing the car key, which was in its place, right? But I chose straight away to go into the blame, okay? But I recognize it, right? I recognize now when I go to blame, and it is just to not have the responsibility, because if I said to myself, oh, Katrina, you went and mislaid the key again, well, then that would be my fault. Except it wouldn't be my fault because my intention wasn't to mislay the key. My intention was to be able to find the key, right? So let me just spell this out for you. You can only talk, in my opinion, about a fault when the person's intention was to do wrong. If the intention of the person wasn't to do wrong, well, then you can't really talk about fault. And if you feel the need to attribute a fault to somebody, just think about this responsibility thing. What is the responsibility that I don't want to take on? Right? Because you've always got a part in anything, right? You are very rarely the innocent outsider. Let me give you an example from just last Friday, or was it Saturday? I don't know. But with my husband, we went on this guilty holiday where we didn't feel guilty, where we actually enjoyed ourselves. And we went with this tiny little sailing boat that you can take up on the beaches, wherever you want to. And then we slept on the beaches, which was just lovely because you've got the starry sky above you and everything, which was lovely, except the last evening. We left the boat and we went behind some dunes because there was a lot of wind there, and we slept behind the dunes. Only during the night, somebody came and moved our boat. So in the morning when we woke up, went to see the boat, oh, it's moved. Oh, somebody wanted to save it, perhaps, we thought. But we thought, oh, that's a bit of a drag because they pulled it very, very far away from the water, and we would have to get it back down into the water. And they pulled it away with a big four-wheel drive. So we thought, okay, this was a person who wanted to do good by saving our boat, even though it wasn't in danger. So we thought, oh, that's a drag, but we'll have to find a way of taking it down to the water. That was like our first reaction. But then I looked for our wetsuits and our what's it called in English? Our safety belts? No, it can't be that. It's when you sail, you put on a life vest. Sorry, a life vest. And we also had a few paddles there, and they'd gone. Right? So actually, somebody had stolen that stuff, and somebody might have moved that boat on purpose to come back and steal it. Right? So there you can talk about fault, because the purpose or the intention behind it was not very, very nice. Right. Hiya, Jennifer. Nice to see you here. So that is an instance of somebody with a very bad intention where you can talk about fault. But it is very rare, isn't it, that people intentionally do something wrong. So we cannot really blame them, right? We cannot really judge them for it. Another example of that would be when people are late to work. They go into justification, excuses. They say, I'm sorry, I'm late because my 1-year-old was crying all morning, so he or she made me late. Okay, well, you can't really blame a baby for making you late, can you? So why are you really explaining it away? It's just an excuse, isn't it? If you want to look at it in a really logical and without the filters way, you were late because you left late. That is the exact reason why you were late. Okay? And I feel that often we want to not take on the responsibility. So let me get back to my responsibility and my husband's responsibility in our boat stealing affair. What our participation in that whole event was that we didn't take the stuff that was stolen with us, right? We left it there on the beach. We could only blame ourselves, right? We could blame ourselves. We could take the responsibility that was ours and leave the rest of the responsibility to the thief, right? So I think awareness is the first step to be able to do something about it. And I'm sure that if you're watching this, you were thinking about judgment and how you'd like to get out of the self-judgment. But you can only get out of self-judgment when you stop judging others. And I'm sorry if this sounds a little bit hard, but it is the naked truth. I don't believe it's possible to stop judging yourself while continuing judging others. So what happens when we judge ourselves is that we turn that into what is called negative self-talk. And it's a bit long to go into here, but next week I'll be doing live class, audio only, that you can download and all that, with worksheets on self-love, and we'll be going a little bit into this self-talk, just to explain to you what we'll be doing in the self-love activation course. So I won't go into it here, but I'm sure that most of our motivation to stop judgment is to stop the negative self-talk that we turn against ourselves, right? So think about it. What helped me a lot to stop the judgment cycle for me was to think in all situations, as soon as, hello Anne, nice to see you. As soon as I started judging, I would say, Katrina, you don't have to have an opinion about this. You don't have to have an opinion about the person with a fat bum. You don't have to have an opinion about the baby who's crying. I don't have to form an opinion about many, many things in life, right? Because they just are. Nobody has willed them along. The baby isn't crying on purpose in order to make you late, right? The woman isn't wearing tight jeans and a fat bum just to upset you, is she? Right? So all these things just are. And I don't have to have an opinion. I can just spend all my energy and brain power on something much more fun than having an opinion. So once you release yourself from the duty of forming an opinion on everything, try it out. You can actually just start noticing. And if you train yourself long enough, you can find that an opinion is not all that interesting, is it? It's much more fun concentrating and focusing on the feeling, I find, okay? Obviously, sometimes you need to have an opinion about stuff and you need to have discernment, you have to analyze and all that. But judgment is not discernment, right? Judgment is this moral heavy weight that we put on events or on purpose. Or on people, I'm sorry. And that reminds me that I haven't talked to you at all about judging events. And that is another big thing that can really get us down and make us not choose happiness. Because when we judge events as either good or bad, well, we are putting a filter on them, aren't they? I've got another example of this because earlier on this summer I did a TEDx talk, and this TEDx talk hasn't been put online yet because I suppose the translators, the video man and everybody were on holiday, but now they've got it all ready, it's all done. But maybe the lighting isn't up to standards. So maybe it won't be put online ever because of the lighting. So I could go into fits and starts about this. I could say, oh, I spent time preparing this TEDx talk. I went to the effort of doing it. I've been talking about it. So poor me. This is such a bad situation for me because my TEDx talk might never go online, right? But who am I to know? Who am I to know whether it's actually really good for me or it's actually really bad for me? It could be really good and it could be really bad, couldn't it? So I don't have to have an opinion about it. So yesterday when Amber, who is organizing the TEDx event, told me, yeah, but we don't know whether TEDx will accept them because of the bad lighting, I could just say, oh, right? I didn't have to judge the situation. I didn't have to have an opinion about it. I just say, oh, what will happen next? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows, right? So that frees up a lot of space for me. That frees up so much more energy that I can actually direct into somewhere where I do have some influence over events, right? So I'm not judging an event which is over and gone. I can't go back and redo it, right? I can't change the lighting on the video. So I can only let it go. And I don't have to fill myself up with all these heavy thoughts about, will it be online? Will it not be online? Will people be able to watch it? Will people not be able to watch it? Will I be able to get other speaking engagements thanks to it? Or will I not? I don't have to know about all that. Hi, Adriana. Yes. Okay. Lovely. Thank you for that comment. Good. So you can either judge people or you can judge situations, and you might feel justified in that. You might enjoy it to some extent, but you can't judge everything external without judging yourself. And I'm sure you'd agree with me, when you turn that judgment towards yourself, it becomes very nasty. So let's get back to this idea of responsibility. When we judge ourselves, we make ourselves responsible, don't we? And that is what I was talking about with the 3 Ps. So we are not actually responsible for everything in our lives. I don't believe so. I know that lots of life coaches say so, but I've talked a lot about my parents being ill, or my mother-in-law and my dad being ill. So when they die, I'm not responsible, am I? It's just one of those things that happens in life. One of those things we don't really want to happen, but that will happen, and I'm not responsible for it. Yet, I'm sure that had this happened perhaps 20 years ago, I would have said to myself, Katrina, did you really do everything in your power so that this would happen as late as possible, right? I would be going over this all the time, and I might even have said to me, Katrina, this happened because you went on a week's holiday at a critical point, right? I'm saying this, maybe you can recognize a situation from your own life where you start blaming yourself or others for the situation now, right? So you're going backwards, you're rewinding your life or the life of others in order to attach blame, right? And sometimes this blame is even shame. Now, the difference between blame and shame is that, no, I was going to say shame and guilt is that guilt is associated with an action, and you can actually learn from guilt. But shame is attached to your being. It's about who you are. It's about what you are. So that shame is something you will just have to get rid of. You can't learn from it. You can't do anything with it. Yet we can go into shame, can't we, as a self-judgment. And I know that people don't like to talk about shame because, as I just said, it's such a useless emotion, and it's such a dreadful thing to be in, that this shame is about who we are. So it's finding fault, not with what we did, which is guilt, but with what we are. So when you start judging yourself, you are creating potential shame around whatever it is you're judging yourself for. And if it is about being overweight, I'm sorry, I talk a lot about being overweight, but it's so concrete and nice to understand. So if you judge yourself and you say, I'm overweight, you could even say, I'm fat, or you can say, I'm a fat slob. This is all just, it's all just building up on that shame, which will only make you feel worse and worse, won't it? I mean, you can't learn from that, can you? You can say, I feel guilty for having eaten five biscuits because they will make me even fatter. You can feel guilt about that. And what can you do about that? Well, you can say, well, next time, instead of even eating 5 biscuits, I'll just have 1 or 2, right? So can you see how shame and guilt are different? So you can judge yourself for having done something, which is guilt, right? And you can judge yourself for being something, which is shame. But what is the use of it? I mean, if you did eat 5 biscuits and you're already overweight and you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that, you can only take it as a learning opportunity, can't you? I mean, you can't go back, you can't efface the action. So you can only learn from it, right? And go a bit deeper and say, why did I choose to eat 5 biscuits? What were the triggers that made me eat them, right? So you can modify your behavior another time, but that is a whole other subject. I want to stay with this judgment. So please don't judge yourself for having eaten the 5 biscuits. You can just say, I ate 5 biscuits. Now, next time, I will only eat 1 or 2, right? There's no other filter to put on that. Then if you want to get curious, you can start exploring your emotions around why you need it, or you felt the need to have the 5 biscuits, right? You can go into that to create more awareness around it, because the more awareness there is, the less risk there is of your making the same mistake again, okay? So don't find fault in it. You don't need to have an opinion about it, right? You can just say, I ate 5 biscuits. So what? Next time I'm presented with a tin of biscuits, I'll just have 1 or 2, right? Have you got any questions? I can see that you posted some more, Adriana. Anna's here. So it's always best to let go, move on, and simply believe rather than rewind. Blame, shame, guilt of the past. Yeah. So feeling guilty or shameful about the past, we all of us have things that we feel really ashamed of. I've got lots of things I feel so ashamed of. I've got lots of things that I feel guilty about, right? But I'm forgiving myself. And at the beginning, I couldn't quite forgive myself. So I started off by compassion. I gave myself some compassion, right? Which is not exactly the same as forgiveness, but it does bring in a lot more space and a lot more light. If you can be compassionate towards a person who did the shameful thing or who did the guilty thing, right? So bring in some more compassion. Can I just go back to my example of people stealing from us at the beach? I can't even feel anger towards a thief. I mean, I don't know who it is. It's probably somebody who's very, very, I don't know, who's got a very big problem, don't you think? Because who would want to steal 2 old wetsuits? I mean, 2 life vests. I mean, he can't sell them again, can he? Perhaps a life vest, but how much money can you get out of a life vest? right? 2 paddles. I mean, why would you want to compromise your integrity for such a small loot? So I'm thinking this person is suffering from some severe psychological problems. So I can't even feel angry towards him or her. I can't even feel hate or anything like that. I'm just thinking, wow. And my heart goes out to him. I'm sorry if I'm a bit strange to you, but the compassion. I mean, what sort of a life can he have if he feels the need to go and steal things that are obviously of no value except to the owner, right? And then I can be thankful that he didn't get away with our boat. We've still got it, right? So about the past, because I know that lots of you attach to the past. And as we're starting the Art of Being Me online course tomorrow, we start off by diving into our personal stories about the past, right? So that is really a big chapter. Maybe if you come to my self-love training next Thursday at 6, at my 6, right? It will be a webinar, a live class, which is audio only, and I'll do a few worksheets for you to dive into some of all these issues that don't really lead us to self-love, do they? They're quite the opposite. So my intention for you is to extend a little more compassion and to release yourself from the obligation of having an opinion about everything. You can release yourself from the responsibility of forming an opinion about everything. Just try it out. Next time you're in a situation where you can feel a bit of anger, a bit of frustration coming up, a bit of jealousy, a bit of judgment, try and just think, I don't need to have an opinion about that. I can wait till somebody asks my opinion about that. And it's okay to say, I don't know. I haven't got an opinion about that. Right? So you don't have to judge. If you judge, it's your choice. Right? So please start training yourself to become aware by asking these 3 questions. Who or what am I judging? What are the emotions that this brings on? What triggered it? Right? And have a look at whether this is something you really want to keep or whether it's not just something you want to let go of right now. So let me know if I can be helpful to you in any way. Oh, there are lots more comments. I'm sorry. Your Art of Being Me course sounds great. It's too late to join. No, it's not too late. Okay, I'll post a link. And maybe we can just jump on Messenger if you've got 5 minutes and you can ask me a few questions and I can post you the right link. Right, so I hope this was useful to you. Please tell me if it was, and I'll see you next time, very soon. Bye for now.